All right, welcome to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Mathis from University Park PD in Texas. He has 35 years experience in law enforcement and a really compelling and inspirational story. So I'm really looking forward to having him on the show today. Welcome, Chief Mathis. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Peggy. Glad to do it.
Of course. I was hoping that we can give a little bit of background into your career, how you got started, maybe some of the highlights so that our listeners can get to know you a little bit better.
Yeah, thank you. So I started in 1990, right after graduating college. I applied in the summer of 90 to Dallas Police Department. I was accepted and started the academy late August of 1990. And that's a 6-month academy. And then I was assigned to late night, deep nights patrol, it's the Southeast Patrol Division. And worked there for about 6 years, had a great experience. I was on night shift the entire time, mostly by choice. I liked the people I worked with, excellent officers, excellent supervisors. Learned a lot. Great community, challenging policing, but we had skin in the game. We really wanted to make a difference and felt like we did. Hopefully, we did. But got to a point in my life, my career, where I thought I was ready for a change, and I knew if I was going to make a change, I needed to do it pretty quick because you get past a certain point, you need to be pretty probably committed to where you are. So I saw an ad in the paper for uh, University Park Police Department hiring police officers, and I was familiar with the Park Cities. The Park Cities are Highland Park and University Park. They're south, and we're to their north, just north of downtown Dallas. And so I applied. I didn't really think I'd get hired, but over one hurdle after the next. And that was in January of 1997. I started here. We're a small to mid-sized agency, 42 sworn officers, another 20 support staff, and started as a patrol officer. And we worked 10-hour shifts and did most of my time about the first, I guess, roughly uh, 8 or 9 years. So I promoted to sergeant as a patrol officer, and then I stayed in patrol as a sergeant. Did a little time in the investigative unit, and ultimately had an opportunity to move up to captain, division commander. University Park has great benefits for tuition reimbursement, so I took advantage of that. Did some schooling along the way, and just helped develop my resume a little bit, and was able to move up to division commander. That was 2013, and chief ahead of me, Greg Spradlin, was running the department, and he made that promotion for me, and he stayed about another 7 years, and he could have stayed a lot longer. He's a great chief and did a really good job, but he just felt like the time in 2020, for a lot of reasons, was a good time to make his exit, and so he did retire at the end of 2020, and I was fortunate enough to be moved up to the chief's position January 1 of 2021.
Amazing. I know, you said that you worked most of your career in the streets, working nights, working weekends. How did that impact your wellness?
So it was challenging. It was challenging. We worked 12-hour shifts for most of that time, so it's a long day. So you're really tired by the end of it. So you get home, you're especially coming off a night shift, you're going straight to bed, or at least I was, to get as much sleep as you could. So there are a lot of challenges. Challenges for sleep, certainly challenges for healthy eating, challenges for exercise. All of that was a little more difficult to do on 12-hour shifts. Also, when you're working nights or weekends, adds a little bit of added pressure to your family life.
Yeah.
You really have to be very, very deliberate. You have to try and do what you can to stay fit and to keep excess weight off. And so I did my best. I fluctuated on that quite a bit, depending on what was going on in my life. But I tried to maintain a pretty good balance in terms of eating a little healthier and working out.
Yeah, and I can only imagine. I mean, it's so hard because you talk about the importance of sleep, but then we also talk about the importance of, showing up for your family and being there for those times. And then you also have to work. So it's like, how do you balance everything? And I had a conversation recently and I agree with this. There's never balance. There's always something that's going to be a little out of balance, but it's like, how can you do your best to fit it all in so that you have the best possible work life and home life that you possibly can? I know that nutrition is something that's brought up a lot, especially with shift work. Are there any strategies that you have found to be successful with meal prep or packing snacks or just eating healthier if you are choosing fast food on the road? Like, is there anything that you can give advice to maybe people who are currently working nights and don't have a lot of options?
Yeah, well, like everything else, it's a choice.
Mm,
Really, every restaurant, even McDonald's, has some healthy choices, and so it's easy to forget that and just drive through and get the thing that tastes the best. Not that healthy food doesn't taste good, but it's easy to go the path of least resistance and get the thing you think you might enjoy a little bit more. But you can eat healthy, really anywhere, whether it's a salad or grilled chicken. It's available. You just have to make that choice. As far as strategies for food prep, what helped me then, and still helps me now, is when you have that time, everybody has a day where they do have some extra time. Take advantage of that and cook for the week.
mm,
Uh, Invest several hours, maybe right before you go back to work for the week, and throw some chicken breasts on the grill, and some turkey or whatever you can do in quantity, and eat on it the rest of the week. So you're already prepared. You're not having to scramble during the week to try and figure out what you're gonna have, because when you're not prepared, you're gonna tend to make worse choices.
yeah, I really love that you said taking the path of least resistance. I actually say this all the time, and I teach this all the time that our minds and our bodies are always going to want to take the path of least resistance. And it takes training and consistency and discipline to be able to, take the path that's quote unquote healthier or better for you because it is. It's like default mode that you're going to want the burger or you're going to want to hit the snooze button or whatever it is, your body and your mind are going to want to take that path of least resistance. So how can you have a little bit more discipline to make different choices? So I appreciate that. I like that you said that a lot. I know that when we talked offline, you shared a story with me, and I was hoping that you can share this with our listeners. There was something that happened the day after you were sworn in as chief.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that. I would like to share this also just as a tribute to our officer. So in December of 2020, lead up to my transition to chief, I was sworn in on December 15th of 2020, city council Tuesday evening. And the next day, we received word that one of our officers was missing from a hunting trip. It was Wednesday the 16th. And so initially we didn't think a lot of it, but as time went on and no word was received from him, we got more and more concerned. Learned he'd been out duck hunting on a lake out east of here by himself, and so we were trying to get as much information as we could. And we went ahead and dispatched a couple of folks to go out there to the lake and see what we could find out. We were in communication with his wife, and we got there. A lot of us, the contingent of us, got there at the lake in the evening, and still there was no word. Game warden was out there searching the lake, and they eventually recovered his boat. What was strange about the whole thing was his clothes were neatly folded on the dock, as was his cell phone. He was nowhere around, and his boat was nowhere around. His truck was in the lot. Someone found these things, went to the sheriff, and that's what got the ball rolling on that. And so, as we all went out there and were investigating it, by the end of the day, they had not found him, but they determined that he had to have been in the water.
Mm,
There's no other logical explanation. It's very, very cold, bitter cold. So they called the search for the day because of weather. It was hazardous to continue searching. And so we posted guard out there around the clock to make sure that we were on site overnight. And next day they resumed the search. And about 11 o'clock the next morning, they recovered his body, probably about 30 yards off of the dock. And what we think happened, piecing the evidence backwards, was that we think he backed his boat into the water, took it off the trailer, uh, got it over to the dock and tied it to the dock, got back in his truck and parked it. And then when he got back to the dock, the boat had come loose and was floating away. And so clearly he had time to take off his outer warmth clothing, fold it up and set there, and he went in the water to get it. And it overwhelmed him. The temperature of the water was just too cold. And so he had a cardiac event, we learned later.
mm,
And I share the story and with permission of his wife. His name is Sergeant Robert Ramsey. We always want to honor him, remember his name. is a great guy and a great officer. Share this with permission of his wife that eventually they learned that he had some hidden risks, cardiovascular risks that he was not aware of. And she shared that with me and allowed me to share it with my department to make the point that you just don't know what's going on behind the scenes of your body unless you take the time to check. And she urged us all to pay a lot of attention to wellness and to get those screenings. You can get vascular screenings, cardiovascular screenings with your doctor. They're readily available. And they learned that possibly had he done that, maybe this could have been avoided. But yeah, that was a tough start to my tenure, and we laid him to rest several days later, and very hard on the department. We mourned that very difficult, and I think we came together as a department. We rose to the occasion and honored him, I believe, and I think we shared each of us shared our memories of him and so although it was just very bittersweet, it was a time that we never would have imagined something like that would happen. But as a result, I think some good came out of it, and we do miss him every day. But it's just a tough way to start out.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for keeping his memory alive. And I don't know why I got emotional. Um, what are what are some of the things that you learned as a leader during that time that maybe you leaned on a lot, or maybe you didn't realize that you knew or you needed to learn? What did that experience teach you?
So communication is key,
Mhm.
uh, especially during times of uncertainty. There was about a 24-hour window where we knew something was wrong, we didn't know what it was. And it was up to me now. Can no longer look to the outgoing chief. It was up to me to be that one that communicated, kept in touch, gave regular updates, tried to the best of my ability to inspire and remind everybody what our purpose is, that we are what we do is we look out for each other and we look out for ourselves. And I wanted to emphasize that message. And so it's very important to communicate. Also, very important to keep tabs on your folks and just see how they're doing. Small agency like this, especially, we know each other well. We
Yeah.
know right, and so to look for those warning signs if someone's struggling hard. We did bring in um, a debriefing team, brought in grief counselors that met with us, and we did make that mandatory for everyone to go. Didn't have to speak, didn't have to say a word if you didn't want to do it, but we did schedule everybody to go and be part of the group debriefing session. And I thought that was very helpful. Number one, it gave people an opportunity to speak what's on their mind and also send the message that we care about our folks. Someone made the comment to me that you had that happen 20 years earlier. People have just been told just move on and go on with your life. And we did take the time to take care of the needs of our people.
Yeah. How did you keep up morale, and how did you support the wellness? I know you said that you had, um, you know, a critical debrief afterwards. Were there small things that you noticed made a really big difference for you guys to come together?
Um, yeah, I think someone, and I'm not going to take credit for this, one of our officers just started an email chain and just shared a story about Robert that meant a lot to them. And
Mhm.
I don't even know if he intended for that to go further, but it did. It built, it snowballed. Someone else replied all with their story, and someone else replied all with their story. And I just remember what was meaningful about that was just the call to build bridges with people. And you may think that you don't have anything in common, but you do. And to take the time to build relationships and to find common ground with people. Not just people you work with every day, but even strangers. And you know, we all share the same human condition, and we're all just struggling through the same issues. And it's just important to build those bridges. So I would say that was really important. It was unofficial. It was organic, right? It just came of its own. No one told anybody to do it. Someone just followed what was the thought on their mind and their heart was to just share a story. And that I was really pleased with how that grew.
What a beautiful way to celebrate his life and his career. And like you said, to come together as a team and connect with each other through such a tragic time. I think that so often when we go through hard things in our life, we tend to isolate. And I have seen the opposite in the law enforcement community. I have seen you guys band together and become even stronger. And so, as an organization, for you to see that firsthand of how you can take this tragic moment and grow stronger as a team and still be able to honor your fallen officer, I think that that is such a beautiful story. And I'm so glad that that happened.
Well, thank you for that. And as a leader, I think, and this, goes back to even just becoming a sergeant for the first time. What really, the point that was driven home to me years and years ago as a leader, just going through the process is that, uh, you have to sacrifice your own wishes at times. During a tragic situation like that, if you're naturally inclined to withdraw and be quiet and go off to a lonely place by yourself, you can't do that. You
Mm.
have to be there for your people, and you have to provide that leadership and that encouragement and that motivation. And so you kind of have to lay that aside and remember that people are looking to you for answers and for guidance and inspiration. And that really was driven home during the situation with Robert's death.
And I know that I mean, you mentioned this, you started during COVID, and then this happened the day after you were sworn in. What did you do to get through those hard times personally?
It's funny. Well, I'll give you the big overall answer. The big overall answer is I'm my faith carried me through. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and He is central to my life, and so I rely on my faith all the time through prayer and through reading the Bible and memorizing Scripture. That is real to me. It's not just theory, and so that carries me through that tragedy and everything I face. It has ever since I believe first in 1981. So it's my faith in Christ is my rock, and so that's my starting point. In terms of um, just moving forward on that, at that particular point, I was it was like drinking from a fire hose, right? Learning this job, I was stepping into a role as now all of a sudden responsible for everybody in the organization. Uh, a police officer on the streets is responsible for one person, him or herself. But the higher you move, the more people you're responsible for. So all of a sudden, I'm in charge of this entire department. Not a huge department, but 62 people, and I've got to find my way. And so there wasn't a lot of time to. I had adequate time to grieve and to mourn and to try and connect with people. But the flip side of that was I was so busy learning all the nuts and bolts of my job
Mm.
that I guess that maybe helped a little bit. It helped as a bit of a distraction to get me through, and just again trying to figure my way out as a chief and brand new chief. I had a great staff, incredible staff. My assistant chiefs are amazing, and they were both long tenured. Right off the bat, I had a number of promotions to make. Some of those were people that are already on the eligibility list. Some of them were not. And so that was first order of business is getting the right people in place. And once I got over that hurdle, it helped because I had people I could really rely on officially to help carry that burden.
Thank you for reminding me that it started well before, because you're right. You know, it was the accumulation of a very long career. And obviously, there's different stressors throughout different assignments, right? And the stress that you have now is going to look different than the stress that you had when you were working as a patrol officer. Some more and some less, it's just different. And so I appreciate you saying that you needed these resources throughout the entirety of your career, and that is something that you leaned on. I think that it's important to recognize that there are going to be modalities or pillars of wellness that work different for different people. And for some people like yourself, spiritual wellness is something that's really, really effective. For other people, maybe it's something else, but to find something that's going to carry you throughout your career and is going to be able to hold you up when you feel like you're down, and something that's going to keep you going is so important to find. And so whoever's listening, it's a matter of finding what works for you and leaning on that when you need it the most.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I am. I'm really, we talked a little bit about this, but um, I think, through the hard times, we learn what to do and what not to do and how we can be better. And I would imagine that, through your career, you've learned through challenges and through successes. What are you guys doing now? So, fast forward, it's been a few years now since that incident. What are some things that you're doing now to support your organization's wellness? And what are some things that you would really like to be doing in the future that are maybe in the works?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for many years, I can't take credit for this. This goes back quite a few years. We've been allowing officers to exercise on duty. Again, it was 2002, I believe, started 2002. We went to 12-hour shifts, and there's a big adjustment. And because that's such a long day, the chief at the time authorized officers to go to our maintenance facility where we have a good gym and go exercise for an hour for the lunch break. Still could eat. You just have to squeeze a meal in here and there. But your official lunch break could be an exercise break if we had adequate manpower. And I took a lot of advantage of that. It was very helpful to help me stay fit and also to just help break up the day, right? You don't want to just drive around forever. You're getting out for calls here and there, but it's a lot of time sitting in a squad car. And so that was a great change that we allowed, and we encourage people to do that. Unfortunately, um, we don't always have we always have adequate staffing. We don't always have adequate staffing to take a person off the streets for an hour to go do that. So that's hit or miss. Since I became chief, I've looked for opportunities to try and create a little more structure to a health and wellness plan. I've sent I guess 3 officers now and 1 lieutenant out of state to IACP and other health and wellness symposiums, and just let them say, go out, go there and learn as much as you can, and come back and bring your ideas back here and see if you can encourage people to really pay a little more attention to their health and their wellness. And so I've been pleased with that. We're working on a plan right now. The trick, I think, the thing that trips up so many police departments is the mandatory physical fitness tests.
Mm,
It sparks fear in a lot of people's hearts, and it's hard to implement because I guess for the main reason is because you have to determine what are the consequences for not passing, right? So if you're going to say we're going to put you through a test each year and have to do X number of different types of exercises, well, what if someone doesn't pass? What do you do with them then?
yeah.
Uh, People that create and add a lot of value to your organization, but maybe they're not where they need to be in terms of their fitness. You don't want to lose those people. You want to encourage them. And everybody's got different burdens on their lives and family obligations, and not everybody's equally able at times to exercise. So that's what I struggle with is how do you implement that? How do you strongly encourage it if you don't mandate it? And so we're working on some ideas about that, some incentives, some challenges to try and get folks out there and a little bit more aware of their mental health and their physical health and their spiritual health.
I think that it's such a hard balance, right? Because if you get up in front of anybody, especially type A strong personalities, and use the word mandate or you have to do this, I think that there's an immediate kind of resistance to that. But then it is that question of like, well, you have to be at a certain level to be able to be effective and safe, in your job. But we also don't want to lose you if you're maybe not quite there yet. So I agree with you. I think that that's a challenge. And I think a lot of agencies are struggling with that to figure out like, how do we get people to do it? And if it's not mandated, how do you get people to prioritize their own wellness? You can only do so much if it's not mandated for them to take their own wellness into their own hands. So I think it's something that a lot of agencies are trying to um, figure out and trying to see like what works.
I want to give credit to our human resources department too. In the last few years, they've pushed out a lot of offerings for health and wellness, like that free vascular screenings. Just on
Mm.
duty, you can go over there and get a screening. So they've tried to put things out to just keep health top of mind, and we encourage that as well. It's not mandatory, but we do encourage that. I think what we need to do is start small. Don't worry about radical major transformations. Start small. People that are not where they need to be health wise, it's a source of fear for them. It's
Mm.
not just fear of what might happen to them, but just the fear of changing, because it's so hard. Sometimes it seems impossible, depending on what your circumstances are. And so I think there's a lot of ways we can encourage small steps on that, so that it's not intimidating. It's stuff anybody can do, and so I think that's where we really need to focus. But I do want to give kudos to our HR team for pushing out a lot of health and wellness initiatives too.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think that small steps can lead to big outcomes. And I always recommend that for individuals too. I think that change is always scary because you don't know what's on the other side of things. But I also think that change is necessary. Um, you don't want to be the same person that you were when you were 20. I don't. I sure don't. Like I think about when I was 20 and like how much I didn't know and how much I thought I knew, but I didn't, and my attitude and just my lack of experience and knowledge in life. And so I think that, there change and growth is necessary. Um, but I think that you can do it in those bite-sized pieces where you feel like it's not, like you said earlier, drinking from a water hose, it's not so overwhelming. And when you do it that way, especially in the context of wellness, it becomes more attainable and you don't just like burn yourself out. I have done both. I have definitely done it where I'm like, I'm going to do this 6 days a week and I'm gonna change my whole life. And it works for a short period of time. And then you can't sustain it because you become overwhelmed or, you don't have the time or whatever. So I think you're right. I think if you can say, okay, we're gonna start here. And then once this feels good, and it's obtainable and it's easy, then we're going to add to it and keep going. And then you're building a sustainable wellness program or a sustainable wellness routine, whether that's within your organization or within your own individual life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it can be very frustrating to start something and then not finish it. And so consistency is so important. If it's just a small thing, as long as you're doing it 4 or 5 days a week, then you feel like you've succeeded, you've done something, and you can build on that. But when you try and do too much, and you go 2 or 3 days and you get burned out, and you feel sore, and you just kick it to the side, then you're just frustrated, and even that much more reluctant to try again. So I,
100%.
there's a lot of psychology behind the physical improvement
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're exactly right. It's feeling successful. I think we can be so hard on ourselves, and if you're already in a space where you don't feel good physically, mentally, then you have the courage to try something else, and then you feel like you fail, then you feel even worse physically, mentally. And like you said, that you're not really wanting to do that again because now in your head, you're like, I'm a failure, I suck, or whatever. And so I think that the key is feeling successful. And so, however, you can do that in those small little ways, and then you build on that to build momentum. I'm curious what you think are still maybe the hurdles. Is it, for especially in the context of people taking their own wellness into their own hands. Is it time? Is it um, finances? Is it shift schedules? What are the biggest hurdles individually and organizationally, and how can we help to eliminate some of those hurdles?
Wow. Good question. I mean, I think um, it's hard to say. I think for police work, it's obviously shift work can be difficult for our line of work. The majority of uniformed officers, they're out there on the streets and they're working odd days and odd hours, different from the rest of the world. So you lose that connection. So time is certainly a part of it. Um, you asked me in our conversation offline, maybe and maybe you should about ask me this, but I'll go ahead and go there now. What's the biggest piece of advice I could give someone maybe starting out in their career?
Yeah.
Question you just asked reminded me of that, and I didn't really have a good answer for you when we talked, but I thought about it further, and I try and think, okay, what's the is there anything I can pinpoint that leads to other consequences? And I thought probably the best answer for that is debt and financial health.
Mm,
And the reason for that is I know as I've watched people in my line of work, you get out there, you're young, you're drawing a paycheck for the first time, and you like stuff, you want to buy stuff, and so uh, you buy, maybe you don't have enough in your pocket to do it, so you get a loan and you get some credit and you buy whatever it is you want to buy, and then that works for you, so you buy something else, and the more you buy, the more you spend, and the more debt you take on, the more you have to work. And in this, one good thing about this is a two-edged sword, but police work, there's a lot of extra work opportunities, a lot.
yeah.
Uh, are outside your normal duty hours and work security to make extra money. And that's it's a blessing, but it's a curse because you tend to rely on that to overextend yourself. And so when officers go and they take on more debt, more financial obligations they can handle, they go and work these jobs, they get committed to these jobs. So the more you spend, the more you overextend, the more you have to work to cover it. Well, now the more you're working, the less you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Sleeping, the worse you feel, and the less likely you are to eat healthy and make healthy choices in general. So if you're going home to get 3 or 4 hours of sleep before running off to do your off-duty job, you're not gonna have time to go to the store and pick healthy foods and go
Mm,
out and throw some chicken on the grill. You're gonna run through the drive-through at the fast food restaurant and just get what feels good in the moment. And it just becomes cyclical. So if I could say a word of warning to anybody new in this career is manage your finances very tightly. Don't get overextended because it just starts the ball rolling, snowballs so in such a bad direction for you in terms of having to work so much to cover your debts and sleeping less leads to eating worse. Eating worse leads to getting overweight. I've seen a lot of people fall in that trap, and so I think so much does begin with just proper management of your finances. If you have control of your finances, to a large extent you have control of the rest of your life.
yeah. It's freedom. And I'm so glad that you said that. I actually just had a conversation yesterday with someone who is a financial wellness coach for law enforcement. And he was talking about similar things in this challenge where it's kind of the missing component. And to your point, he said this, it's like a lot of the things that you're seeing are symptoms of poor management of finances. And that's exactly what you explained. It's like if someone is not eating healthy, maybe they're making poor decisions, maybe they're not at home, and so they're having troubles at home. Not all the time, but a lot of the time, you can backtrack that and say, okay, what is the core issue here, and why are these things happening? And a lot of times it is that it's um, falling, I say victim in quotes, but to money taking control over you instead of you having control over your money. And we see this all the time. It's really funny, actually. I was at a law enforcement or a first responder like wellness conference, and they were talking about this, and they were talking about the truck, right? Like everyone talks about this. It's like, oh, everyone has to have a truck, and the thing that you tow behind the truck, right? And everyone's laughing about this. And I was like, oh, haha, that's funny. And then I went out into the parking lot and it was all white, like Ford trucks. I don't know anything about cars, but all really big trucks. And I was like, wow, like I guess it wasn't really a joke. It's actually reality, and everyone's laughing about it because it's true. But a lot of these younger officers who maybe don't have the education, or are trying to keep up with their peers. And, the individual I talked to said, like, you don't have to keep up with the Joneses. They're trying to keep up with their peers. They're overextending themselves. Maybe this is the first job that they've ever had. And so this is the most money they've ever made in their life. And they get that bonus coming in to this agency, and they're like, ooh, I want to buy the truck like my peers. And so I appreciate you said that, because I do think that the more education and awareness we can have, the better prepared individuals can be, so that you can have a life that is is not controlled by debt, you know, and you can go travel and you can retire and do the things that you want to do. So I agree with you. I think that that's a missing component. It's something that's really important.
You talked earlier about going back to being 20 and you didn't really want to do that, but yeah, if I could, that's what I'd whisper in my ear to 20-year-old me is just be smart with your money because it affects so much else in your life.
Same, same. I mean, I don't think I started focusing on my finances till I was in my 30s. And even still was like, man, I should have done this earlier. But to your point, like I didn't have any education in that. I didn't have anyone who was a good example of how to manage your finances. I kind of had to figure it out on my own. So I think that the more conversations we have about this and the more education that can be provided, then the better equipped and prepared the younger generation can be.
Hard. It's hard when when all your buddies have that truck and you don't have it. It's hard, but it does not come without you're paying a price for that. I mean, you really are.
Yeah. I think the question is like, at what cost?
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, what's the cost? Especially if it's a snowball effect, which we know it is. And I think that you can still have nice things and still live. And everyone says within your means. I actually am a proponent of living below your means, because it gives you that extra padding for the unexpected. And I did have a lot of people in my life that were really poor examples of that. And they made great money, but they spent it all. And I have had times in my life where I made great money and I spent it all. And it was a symptom of me being unhappy and not processing the stressors in my life or the trauma in my life that I needed to. And so I was looking for that quick dopamine hit to make me happy in a superficial way. And it always lasted 2 seconds and then went away again. And so I think that's also a reminder. It's like, are you spending money because you're uneducated into how to spend money? Are you spending money because you've set yourself up successfully and you have that buffer where you can afford to do so? Are you spending the money because you're trying to escape the trauma that you are not dealing with? So I think sometimes you have to kind of self-identify, what is the purpose of the spending, and how can you better prepare yourself so that it's not something that is, detrimental to your life.
There are a lot of resources. You mentioned earlier talking to somebody that's in that business of financial advice. There are a lot of resources out there to teach people, especially young, early in their career, how to avoid those traps.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate your time so much, and you did answer my question of words of wisdom, and so I appreciate you sharing your words of advice. I want to give you the floor. If there's anything we missed, if you want any like closing words, I'll let you take it.
Um, I don't think so. I think we covered a lot. I mean, this is a great career. I was not the guy who grew up as a kid always wanted to be a police officer. That was not me. You hear those stories about people when they're little boys that grow up always want to be a police officer. It came to me late, well, relatively late, but it didn't hit me till my senior year in college. I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and I saw an ad for it. And I thought, if I don't do it now while I'm young and single, I'll never do it. And so I just applied a lot of places and ended up in Dallas. And it's just been a great career. I'm very thankful for that. It's steady work. It's an opportunity to serve and try and make a difference in people's lives and help. And I mean, here I am 35 years later. I didn't really think I'd stick with it that long, but it's been very good. Uh, Now, in terms of support for law enforcement, we went through a very, very tough time. In 2014, we did with Ferguson, and again in 2020 with George Floyd and COVID. And so we've been through the ringer in law enforcement for sure. But I'm very thankful that I think that pendulum is swinging. And once the dust settled and everybody looked around, they realized we need our police and we need to support them. And we have a great, very support. I've been blessed to work in two places where we had a lot of support from the community. They needed us and they wanted us. And so I don't know how many more years I'll do, but I'll be here for a little while. And at the end, I'll look back and just be thankful that this is the path that I was allowed to go down. So for all those out there, I'm thankful to them for their service, and hopefully, in some way, we've talked about some of the pitfalls that people can avoid and end up having a very long, healthy career in law enforcement.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you coming on here. And thank you to everyone who is still listening. I appreciate your time, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks, Paige.